please feel free to ask. We'd love to answer. Our goal here today is really to help you. And our bigger goal today is to help you walk away with the tips, the tools, and the resources you need to build the future you want. At Kolbe, our mission, I'm going to paraphrase here, but our mission is to help everyone understand their instinctive strengths to make their life better in a way that's important to them. So if you're here because you're getting ready to start a business and you want to figure out how to use this Kolbe stuff to start your business, we're definitely going to give you some of those tips and tricks and tools that you can use. If you're here because you want to build a better relationship with your significant other or your children, we can still help you do that by looking at some of this Kolbe data. If you're, you just want to get better at your current role or, see how you can take your career to the next level, we're going to give you some of those tips and tricks as well. So that's some of the things we're going to cover, but we want to make sure that anything that you need, any challenges or questions that you have, that we answer. So please feel free to fire away. We'd love to help. So as I said before, my name is Eric. I'm with Kolbe. I'm head of sales here. And like you, I have one of these results that has 4 colorful bars and 3 numbers. And I know for the most part, those colorful bars and numbers don't mean a whole lot. We're definitely going to dig in. We're going to talk about how do you use that stuff. But I show myself as an example because, like you, I've always been trying to look for and find different ideas or different ways to boost my productivity a little bit. How do I get just a little bit that much better? How do I work with my wife just a little bit more? Those sorts of things. And, once I found Kolbe, I actually found a really, really effective way to use that 5392 result that I have. And the great part about Kolbe is that all of our results are perfect. If you probably read that on the top of your report. And so my results are perfect, your results are perfect, but we're probably quite different. And that's okay. So when I show you an example in a second of what I do to boost my personal productivity, that system may work fantastic for you. Or, maybe a thing where that would drive you crazy and it definitely wouldn't work. That's okay. We're going to help you unlock and understand how to build something and create something specifically for you and your results. So what I was I've always been looking for how do I make myself a little bit better. When I found Kolbe, I really was able to unlock and sort of supercharge my productivity. The way that I do it is I figured out that someone with my results does really well when we're under the gun, when we have a very short deadline, but we have to go and we have to get things done. So essentially what I've done is I've broken my day down into either 30 minutes or 1 hour chunks, and I force myself to get things done in that 30 minutes or 1 hour time frame. What that essentially does for someone like myself with a long green line is that kind of gets our juices flowing, that gets us brainstorming different ideas of how to do it, and it really launches me into action. It keeps me going throughout the day. And at the end of the day, even though I knock out all of these things, I'm not really tired, right? I go home, and as you can see on the bottom there in that maroon section, I have some time carved out to make sure that I play with my daughter before we go to bed. And I, have fun doing that, and I try to do it every single day that I possibly can because it's important to me, it's important to her as she grows up, but also I want to make sure that I'm not so drained from work that I'm not able to do that or I'm not able to give her my all. And using my Kolbe strengths in a way that makes sense for my particular result is how you do that. And I know it sounds a little bit far-fetched and you're like, hey, yeah, but you're with Kolbe, of course you're going to say something like that. I'm not the only one that has figured this thing out. Lots and lots of our clients have figured out how to use their Kolbe result to improve their life massively in different ways. Again, whether it's personal life, professional life, lots of folks have figured this out. One example is one of our clients, Phil. Phil is a certified financial planner, and he also runs a business that helps coaches and consultants. As you can see on the screen here, once Phil figured out how to use his particular results, his business revenue jumped 500% over the next 5 years. Right? So think about your life and whatever it is you're working on, whether you're building a business, whether you're currently in a role and you're trying to expand that role or move up in the organization, or even if you're thinking about how do I use this with my family? What would your life look like if if you had 500% more time or more energy to give, or you're 500% more productive. My guess is that's a pretty amazing picture, and that is something that's absolutely possible if you begin to use what we're going to talk about today and implement it into your life. For those of you that hang around and you stay till the very end, we're going to give you special access to some additional resources that you can use to activate your A, to use your particular Kolbe results. So, again, thank you so much for joining us. We really hope that you stay with us, because again, there's some special access we're going to give those of you that hang on until the end, so that you can really supercharge your results and get the same kind of productivity boost that Phil got, or even more. Where we're going to start, though, is I want to get a handle on everyone on the call today. You know, what are you looking to get from this result, or what are you looking to get from your Kolbe index? I know when you signed up for this, there was a box where you could type in some of the things you want to give, and you wanted to give, and I have those in front of me. I'm going to do a really quick poll to try to see where your headspace is at. And what I want to ask you is, what would you do if you were able to get twice as much done in the same amount of time? Again, as I've been talking about Kolbe results, right, I've been talking about increasing your own personal productivity. So if you were able to get twice as much done in the same amount of time, would you spend more time with your family and friends? Would you help twice as many people? Would you make twice as much money, or would you do something else? So I'm going to pause for a second and let everyone on the call answer this. I'll come back, I'll share the results, and then we'll talk through it. All right, so all the results are in. Thanks everybody for answering the poll again. So oddly enough, we have results who we're basically split in thirds. So 33% of you said if you had twice as much time or you're able to get twice as much done in the same amount of time, you would spend more time with your family and friends. A third of you said you would make twice as much money, and a third of you said I would do something else. Whatever it is that you're looking to get from this, that's okay, because our mission, as I said, at Kolbe, is to help you use this information in ways that are important to you. So whether it's trying to figure out how to spend more time with friends and family, or make more money, or build a business, or whatever it is, let's absolutely help you do that. And part of the way that we're going to do that is by helping you activate your A, or use your Kolbe A results. Right? So what we found, is we've been doing this for about 40 years, is that there really are 3 secrets to activating or using your Kolbe A. The first one is you need to know your strengths. Basically, you need to know what those 4 colorful bars are, and you need to know what those 4 numbers mean. Right? You need to start to begin to think about how you use that in your day-to-day life. Then you need to make sure that you neutralize stress. Because what I can tell you is we've done brain research over and over again. We know that stress absolutely is a productivity killer. So we need to make sure that we neutralize that, and we're going to talk you through how you can do some of those things. And then the last thing is really critical. You have to take action. Whether you do it or not, what the Kolbe A is actually measuring is instinctively how you take action. You, me, all of us, when we're problem solving, we do things in a particular way. So I'm going to need you to engage those strengths at the end of this and take some action. That's how you're going to start to get the results that you want. So, right, I was talking about the strengths, and I told you that what we measure at Kolbe is how instinctively you take action. But we all have lots of strengths that make us us, right? Humans are really complex creatures. Recently, I read a quote by Stephen Hawking. Right? He's a famous astrophysicist and probably one of the smartest, if not the smartest people to ever live. And what he said is that math, science, physics are really, really easy when it compares to trying to figure out a person. And that's because there are so many components that make us us, right? How we grew up, right? What kind of culture we live in currently, the part of the world we live in can have an impact. And then also these three strengths that I'm going to talk about, those have a big impact on making us us. And these three strengths that we've identified aren't things that we really found at Kolbe. It actually goes back to ancient Greek philosophy. So think of Aristotle, Plato, way back then. They were talking about these three components of the mind that are our strengths. The first set of strengths that we all have are our cognitive strengths. Think of this as the thinking part of the mind. It has to do with our skills, our education, our experience. Also, our intelligence lives in this space, right? All of those are part of what makes us successful, part of what makes us, can help make us productive if we leverage some of those things, right? If, let's say, as an example, we're in a particular role. Let's say we're in a sales job, right? If we want to become even more effective as a salesperson, part of what we can do is, add some additional skills or fine-tune the sales skills that we have. We can get some more knowledge in a particular industry or learn more about our clients. Maybe just through gaining more experience and working in that field for a while will make you more effective at that. Same thing goes if you're, an engineer, a doctor, a lawyer, a framer, it doesn't matter. All of those, it would work the exact same way. If you dial up your skills a little bit, gain some experience, get some education, you can become more productive. The next part of the mind that makes us us, and the next set of strengths that we all have, are what we call our affective strengths. Think of this as the heart part of the mind. This affect has to do with things like values, emotions, desires, motivations. Right? If I'm motivated to do something, it's more likely that I'm going to engage, I'm going to get things done. What also lives in that affective part of the mind are things like personality or social style. So if you're an introverted person, if you're an extroverted person, that falls in that affective, grouping of strengths. If you're a type A personality, that falls in there. And a lot of you have probably taken some sort of assessment that measures these two things at some point in your life. On the cognitive side, whether you took, a short form intelligence test, or you took some kind of skills test, those are generally cognitive. So as an example, how many words can you type in a minute? Or what kind of skills do you have in Excel? Those are cognitive type assessments. On the affective part, lots of the assessments that you would have heard of will be things like the Myers-Briggs, the DISCs, the predictive indexes of the world, or the which Simpsons character are you, or which Sopranos character are you. Those all fall into the affective part. There's a third part, though, that isn't talked about very often, and that's exactly where Kolbe plays. That's the assessment that you took that you're looking at. That's what it was measuring, is instinctively, how do you go about taking action? Right? How do you problem solve? So on a random Tuesday afternoon, when someone comes down to your office and says, hey, Karen, can you take care of this? Because I know that Karen is a 6'8", 2'4", I know how she's going to go about solving that problem that I just dropped on her desk, right? And whether her kids know it or not, when they come to her and say, hey, Mom, can you help with this? She is going to go about taking care of this in a 6'8", 2'4" way. And it's the same for you, the same for all of us. The cool part is we've been doing this since we were little kids. When we were 5 years old running around the playground, we solved problems in this way. Now that we're older, we're still probably in the workforce, we're still doing things in this particular way. As we get older and we retire, or we let our foot off the gas a little bit, we're still going to take action in this way. So the cool part is some of the things I'm going to share with you today will be applicable today. They'll be applicable a year from now, 20 years from now, 30 years from now. You can still use some of the stuff that we're going to talk about because your cognitive strengths don't change over time. So again, I've been talking about different strengths, different parts of the mind, but now let's really jump into what is this Kolbe thing measuring, right? You all took 10, 15, 20, 25, 30 minutes, whatever it was. You completed the Kolbe A. Now let's talk about your specific results. So when you took it, you either went to Kolbe.com and clicked that purple button in the top right-hand corner, or a friend sent you a link, or a coworker sent you a link, something. But you got in there and you landed on a page that looked like this, and it asked you some kind of vague directions, right? It says, answer by asking yourself, if free to be myself, I would. And you know what? For some of us, that's actually kind of hard, because we're not always free to be ourselves generally, right? There are societal norms that play into that. There are things like how we grew up that play into that. If you have a particular culture in your workplace, you may not get to freely be yourself all the time, but you thought through it, you got in that right mind space, and then you went through and you started answering each of the 36 questions. And for each of the 36 questions, right, you answered which one you would do most, and you answered which one you would do least. So in this one, as an example, right, if I were solving a difficult problem, I would rely on in this case, this person chose skill most and ability to structure least. Kolbe is a strengths-based assessment, so there isn't a right or wrong, right? So whether you chose skill as most, or research, or experimentation, or structure as most, it's okay. That's simply how you naturally problem solve. So you went through, you answered those 36 questions, and I'm going to bet that there were a number of questions where you answered them really easily, and you were like, yes, I would for sure do that one most, and I'd for sure do that one least. And there were probably others where you sat there and you stared at it for a while, and you went, I don't know that I would do any of them most. Or, maybe I would do all of them most. I don't have a least, or something like that. Actually, by design, we intentionally build that in to make sure that you're answering in a consistent manner. We work with our research partners, in the local universities to ensure that we have a valid instrument, right? To make sure that we're measuring what we're supposed to, and we want to make sure that our assessment really digs in and gets at what are your cognitive strengths, what are your instinctive ways of problem solving. What we also do when we work with those research partners is make sure that, if you take it now and you take it a year from now, 5 years from now, 15 years from now, your results don't change. We're actually, as we speak, doing a study about folks who took it 20 years ago, and we're reassessing them now. And whether it's 20 years ago and now, or it's 2 years ago and now, the results still come back the same. Over 90% of the time, your results don't change. Once you get a valid result with 4 numbers, 4 colorful bars, that's you. That's how you naturally problem solve from childhood all the way to as you continue to get older. So just know it's a valid scientific instrument. We have lots of research partners that help us make sure that we're measuring what we're supposed to. You all went through, you answered those 36 questions, and you all got a result that looks something like this. And you all got 4 colorful bars, a red one, a blue one, a green one, and a yellow one, and you all got 4 numbers. Yours may look similar to mine, and it may look completely different. If you look at the top of your report, you're going to see something that says you have a perfect result. That's because your results are perfect for you. And if you haven't yet, in the online version, go back and check it out because you get some specific insights from Kathy Kolbe, our founder, about your particular result. And she'll talk you through, for example, if I was logging in, she would talk me through a 5392 and what that means. So these colorful bars, I've been talking about them. What's the first one? We're just going to go from left to right here. Because oddly enough, I know there's some of you on the call where you need to go from left to right. If I started in the middle with the green one and then I bounced to the red one, it wouldn't work for a number of you. So we're going to go from left to right, make it really systematic, make sure we're going to go through them one at a time. So that first colorful bar on the left is called Fact Finder. Fact Finder is all about gathering and sharing information. When all of us problem solve, we gather and share information in one way or another. It's simply, do we gather a lot? Do we gather a little bit? Do we gather some, and that's really what we're looking at here. And Kolbe is strengths-based. One result isn't better than another. So a 1 isn't better than a 10 in FactFinder, and a 10 is not better than a 1 in FactFinder. We just want to know, where do you fall? So for those of you that are on the call that have a 7 through 10 in FactFinder, here's what I know about you. Here's how you go about gathering and sharing information. You're very precise. Right? You want to make sure that you dot all the I's, you cross all the T's. You're also going to do some research. You're going to take a look at, when you're problem solving, what have I done that's like this before? Or you're going to actually, go and dig in, look at it in a book, or open up, Google, and then read a report about it or something like that, because you need to understand everything that goes into whatever it is you're about to tackle. You're also going to begin to prioritize and take a look at what is the highest likelihood of success and prioritize it that way. You're going to build on experience. You're going to look at, what have I done that's like this before or in the past that I can use some of that information to help me solve this problem. Very precise, we'll gather lots and lots of information. What I know all of you folks with the 7 through 10 also do is you need to know the why behind things. If I need you to get on board with something, if I need to ask you to do something, you need to know the why behind why I'm asking you. Otherwise, it's going to be difficult. You're going to procrastinate a little bit in getting that thing done. On the other end of the spectrum, there's some of you on this call today that are in that 1, 2, and 3 range. 1, 2, and 3 is a fantastic strength. It's just different than those of you with the 7 through 10. So those of you in that 1, 2, or 3 range, you're very much the big picture kind of folks. Right? You focus on the bottom line. If somebody comes to you with a whole bunch of information, you're like, whoa, just net it out for me. What's the bottom line? What they're really saying is, look, cut this down to a bullet point, or maybe even a phrase or a couple of words, because they need to simplify the solution. That's part of their gift, is they can look at lots of things coming at them and just pick out that one critical issue, that one critical thing to help solve that problem. And those are sort of those are definitely on opposite ends of the spectrum. You have folks who are very precise, need lots and lots of information. And on the other end of the spectrum, you have folks who are, very much, I don't need lots of information. I just need one little snippet. Those are both fantastic strengths. There's a third group of you that are on the call that are a lot like me. You're in that 4, 5, and 6 range. What we do is we sort of bridge the gap between those two sides. The way I like to describe someone with a 4, 5, or 6 in FactFinder is we only need enough information to be dangerous. Right? You give us 2 or 3 key facts, 2 or 3 key bullet points. Now we have enough to work on. We can go ahead and we can move forward. Right? You give us a bunch of information. We'll review it. We're going to figure out what are some of the inconsistencies. We're going to say, okay, this is a critical piece and that's a critical piece. So we need 2, 3, 4 bullet points, something like that, in order to get things done. So that's kind of working it through the way through FactFinder. And what you'll notice is that I go through each one of these colorful bars, they're going to work the same way. There'll be a group of you that's 7 through 10. There'll be a group of you that's 4, 5, and 6. There'll be a group of you that are 1, 2, and 3. So this next one we're going to talk about is a blue bar called follow-through. Follow-through is all about how you arrange and design systems, how you put things together, and it also has to deal with bringing things to closure. So for those of you in the call with a long blue line, that 7 through 10, what I know is that part of how you problem solve is by building step-by-step processes for you and others to follow. It can look like, also comes alive and looks at things like a checklist, right? If you're going to get something done, you're going to write down, I need to do A, and then B, and then C, and then D, and E, F, G, so on and so forth. That's how you naturally do things. And as you work through your to-do list, you're going to cross them off. And if you do something that's not on your to-do list, more than likely you then write it on that to-do list and then cross it off. Because that's how you get things done. You build step-by-step systems to follow. You also have a strong need to bring things to closure. So earlier I mentioned Karen is a 6842, so she has a long blue line. I know if I come to Karen's desk and say, hey, can you work on this? She's going to stay locked in on that thing until she is completely done and she can cross it off her list. She needs to bring things to closure. On the other end of the spectrum, you have folks like me. We're in that 1, 2, and 3 range. Our strength in this is being very flexible. Right? If you come to me with a 5-step process, I'm naturally going to cut it down to 2 or 3 steps, and I'm going to adapt those 2 or 3 steps. I'm going to change them, and I'm going to move things on the fly. That's my natural way of getting things done. I'm going to vary the approach. Even if I take that 5-step process and I cut it down to 2 steps, I'm going to do step 1 first this time, and then next time I'm going to do step 2 first. Because I need to vary the approach and change it and be flexible. In that middle range, 4, 5, and 6 zone, those of you that have that strength, what you naturally do is take a look at an existing system or process. You're not going to change it or cut it down. You're just going to look at it and say, hey, how do I tweak this? How do I make it a little bit better? How do I make it a little more efficient? You're going to follow that system that's already there. Just make it run a lot more smoothly. You're not identifying any inconsistency. All right, keep moving forward. Now we're going to talk about that next colorful bar, the green one, called Quick Start. So you know, Quick Start has nothing to do with speed. It's a little deceiving on that one. It actually has to do with dealing with risk and uncertainty. So really it should be colored gray, because it's all about how do you deal with that gray area. For some of you on the call, you have a long green line like I do, right? So what that means is that you do some of your best work in the unknown, when you're not sure what's going to happen, but you're going to go for it anyway, because you try things and you experiment. Right? What you also tend to do is when you need to get something done, you're going to brainstorm on ideas. You're going to say, oh, what if we try this? What about that? What about this? Right? So you throw a whole bunch of stuff against the wall and try to see what sticks. Also, what helps folks like myself and those of you with long green lines is we need to be deadline driven. Karen comes to me and says, hey, Eric, can you get this done by next Wednesday at 10 o'clock? Yeah, sure. And you know what? It'll sit on my desk until next Wednesday at 9:30, and then I'm going to knock it out because I need that tight deadline. You know, in school, you guys probably heard, you know, if something's due next week, start on it now. Though you get a little bit at each time. For those of you that are like me with that long green line, that's actually bad advice. We need that time. We need to have that time-sensitive piece to get those creative juices flowing. Earlier when I showed you all my calendar, that's part of the reason I chunk my day into 30-minute or 1-hour blocks, because I have to have those deadlines. It makes me much more productive. I get some of my best ideas out of that. On the other end of the spectrum, there's those of you that 1, 2, or 3 range. Right? What that means is that you naturally minimize all of the risk, all of the chaos. The way that you do that is you take a look at what's working really, really well, and you stay on track with that. So when everyone is running around with their hair on fire and changing this, trying that, all these different things are going on, you are able to be that calming force that says, look, guys, if we do this and this and this, we've done it 100 times before, it works flawlessly, let's keep going down that path. Right? What you also, the reason that you do that is you control the options, you protect the status quo, and you help minimize the risk. So you help folks like me who need to try things, who are going to be a little bit more, try different things that increase the risk. You're going to keep us out of trouble because you're going to say, hey, Eric, I know you need to do this. However, did you think about this, that, and the other thing? I'll go, oh, no, I didn't. That makes sense. All right, let's not pull the trigger on that one. Next group of folks are those of you in that 4, 5, and 6 zone. And you're in the middle. You can bridge the gap. So when I come into the office, you know, with all kinds of crazy ideas that I thought of as I was driving in that this morning, and I say, hey guys, let's try this and that and the other thing. And someone in that 1, 2, or 3 range goes, whoa, wait a minute, Eric. You think about this and what about that? The person in that middle range can look at it and say, all right, I checked out what Eric said and it makes sense. Okay, let's go with that one. But you can also say, hey, you know what? The person with that 1, 2, or 3, they're right. We've been doing this over and over again. It doesn't make sense to change it. So let's pump the brakes a little bit. Let's keep the rail on track. Let's keep the train on the track. Let's keep going this direction. And those of you in the middle in any of these colorful bars serve as that bridge between the two sides. And it really helps to bring folks together when we talk about communication or working together as a team or even working together as a family unit. Now we move on to the next and last colorful bar. It's that yellow one. It has to do with implementer. Implementer is all about dealing with the physical world, right? Getting your hands on it and touching it, tasting it. Think of it as implements, like a surgeon's scalpel, like a screwdriver, a hammer, those kind of things. Those are all implements. That's what we're looking at here, is how do you interact with the physical world? Some of you on the call have a long yellow line, right, 7 through 10. You need to physically get your hands on things. You need to touch it, taste it, right, in order to make it come alive for you. You actually also need to build things. Part of the way that you communicate is you naturally demonstrate solutions. So you're going to physically oftentimes build a scale model of what it is you're talking about, and you're going to show it to someone as a way to get your point across. You're also going to insist on quality. Quality in whatever it is that you're building, and also quality in the tools and implements that you're going to use. So if I hand someone with a 7 through 10 an implement or a screwdriver with a broken handle, that doesn't work for them. They're going to go to their pristine toolbox and grab one that is 100%, high quality. They spent probably 3 or 4 times more than I spent on my broken screwdriver, and they're going to fix it because they insist on quality. On the other end of the spectrum, you have folks like myself, who are in that 1, 2, and 3 range. When someone's talking to us about a physical thing, whether it's a house, a car, a building, a desk, whatever it is, as they're talking, we can begin to picture it in our minds. We don't need to necessarily get our hands on it and touch it. And so this works really well when you need to, let's say, describe something over the phone, right? Those of you with that 1, 2, 3, just like I do, it's easier for you to take in some of those descriptions, and it's easier for you to give some of those descriptions because you work in an intangible world, right? You can describe without having to physically demonstrate. Those of you in the middle, that 4, 5, and 6 zone, what you naturally do is you're not going to necessarily build it from scratch, but you're able to repair things. So if something breaks down, you've always had a way where you can just jump in and it makes sense. You're like, oh, well, if I do this and I cut this piece off here and I twist that, okay, now it goes back to working. In the office, you're probably the person that when the copier goes down, right, you can jump in and fix it. You don't have to, right? It comes pretty naturally to you. Or, at home, you're the person that, tinkers in the garden or works on a car or something like that, because you still have a need to get your hands on things. You're just not necessarily going to build a brand new thing. And you can begin to bridge the gap between the two, so you can take something that's physical and help someone who doesn't need to get their hands on it visualize it. You can describe it to them, and vice versa. Someone can describe something to you. You can start to put it together to make it become real, to give it to that person with that longer 7, 8, 9, 10. So I wanted to set a baseline, make sure that everybody understood their 4 colorful bars and their numbers. I'm going to take a quick break. We're going to open it up to questions that any of you may have about your particular results. So I'm going to put myself on mute for a second as the questions come in, so Karen can relay them to me, and I'm going to answer them for you guys. All right, so one of the questions we have is my result is a 7, 4, 6, 4. So basically this person has a long red line. Do you have any tips to help me get more done in my day or kind of structure my day, those sorts of things? Here's what I'll tell you. With that 7, that long red line, you're going to need lots of information. You need to know the why behind things. And you also need to understand what the priorities are, what has the highest likelihood of getting done. So look at your day ahead of time, right? Look at what are all the pieces I'm going to need. For this meeting at 2 o'clock, what stuff do I have to bring with me? For this thing I have to get done, what are all the components that go into it? And then start to set priorities for yourself of what has to get done today, or what is the highest likelihood of getting done today, and then kind of move down from there. That'll actually help you get more done. Another thing you can do is what's called the 80% solution. When you have 80% of the information that you think you need in order to move forward, move forward. That will help you avoid some of that analysis paralysis. Great question. So I know that there's some of you where this is I'm trying to touch and answer and look into each of the 4 modes and kind of combine everything, but I want to be able to answer it for a group. If you need to go a little bit deeper, you need individual coaching to talk about your specific result. At the end, I'm going to put up some information, some contact info. Get in touch with us. We can definitely help you. All right, so great questions, guys. In the interest of time, I'm going to keep moving forward. Karen's going to keep the chat box open. She'll chat back to you if I didn't get to your question, but let's keep moving forward. All right, so earlier I alluded to it, right? Stress is a productivity killer. As I mentioned, we've worked with research partners, we've worked with local universities, and on several occasions we've identified that stress really does hurt your productivity. Something we all sort of know, but we've literally hooked people up to the EEG machines, and we've watched it go on in their brains. And what happens is they end up being like this little guy pulling their hair out. And part of what causes us stress is we don't always use our mental energy in an effective way, or we run out of mental energy, and then we're kind of stuck. So what we know is that each of us only has so much mental energy, right? Mental energy is finite. So what I'm showing you here is a picture of Mark Zuckerberg's closet. He obviously can afford a lot more than just gray t-shirts and gray hoodies, but he knows he has to make so many decisions through the day, and he doesn't want to waste any of his energy making a decision on what should he wear. Right? If it's a nice day in Palo Alto, maybe he'll ditch the gray hoodie. Other than that, right, he's got to focus all of his energy on running his company. The same thing is true for you. You, me, all of us, we have a limited amount of mental energy. If you go to about page 10 on your Kolbe results, you're going to see a pyramid that looks something like this. So hopefully everybody got to page 10 and you found your pyramid. Now, the colors may be a little different, and that's okay, because this is based on your particular results. But what I can tell you is that in this pyramid, we all have 100 of those little bubbles. Those little bubbles are called ergs, or units of energy. What it's designed to show you is that we all have a limited amount of mental energy. So even though I'm a 9 in quick start and a really long green line, you can see that at some point I can run out of that energy. Same thing is true for those of you who, let's say you have a 10 in fact finder. You can actually overwhelm a 10 in fact finder with data, with information, with details. It's just it has to be a whole lot of data, information, and detail. Also, when we talk about using your mental energy, what you should know is that there's a way you should be using it. And the way you should be using it is by starting at the top of your pyramid and working your way down. So as an example, when I need to get things done and be really, really productive, I should start by brainstorming ideas, by innovating, by using that 9 in quick start that I have. Then from there, I'm going to use those red bubbles. I'm a 4 or I'm a 5 in fact finder, so I'm going to get just enough information to be dangerous. Then from there, I'm going to use my 3 in follow through to adapt and rearrange any systems that are in place. And then finally, I'm going to use that 2 in implementer to envision the solution. For you, if your result is 8822, then you're going to start with the red bubbles at the top, meaning gather lots of information. Then you're going to move on to the blue ones, which means build systems, processes. Then you're going to minimize the risk, and then you're going to envision. Whatever it is, whatever your results are, the best way for you to get things done is to start at the top of your pyramid, essentially, and use those strengths going down. And so let's talk about how this plays out in real life, and what does this look like. So we use myself as an example. Again, I'm a 5'3", 9'2", so what that means is that I'm someone who naturally does their best work in the unknown. and I kind of run towards risk, I don't get enough information to be dangerous. I'm going to adapt systems. I'm not going to follow them. I'm going to envision solutions. Well, here's what I can tell you is that our educational system is set up in a way that you need to follow systems and processes, and there are specific rules that you have to follow and you can't bend. And what I also know is I grew up in a household that was very similar to that. Right? This is my father's result. So in my house, there was absolutely a specific way that things had to be done. And there was a very precise way that you had to put your clothes away, and a precise way that you had to, make your bed. And there was a precise way that you had to do things. And also, when I'm a 9 quick start, taking lots of risks, as a little kid jumping out of trees or trying, experimenting, doing new things, that wasn't the way things were done in my house, because there was a specific way to do it. And so it caused a bit of friction inside of my family, right? And as I continued to grow up, right, and I got through school, and I got through college, and I moved into the working world, I continued to look for, this doesn't feel right. There's not one way to do things, right? But I didn't have any data to back that up. I didn't have something that said, yes, Eric, you're definitely right. You should be trying new ways of doing things, adapting them, those sorts of things, until I took my Kolbe. Then it totally makes sense why my whole life as I was growing up and early in my career, I was this little guy pulling my hair out because I was trying to follow systems and processes. I was trying to do things in one particular way, when that's bad advice for someone like me. For someone on the call who is like, let's say, my father, who has a long red line, a long blue line, then yes, that is actually good advice, and there should be a precise way of doing things. We should gather lots of information and mitigate the risks. That's perfectly okay. What we're trying to get you to understand is people have different results, and the best way for you to do anything is just you be you. That's how you're going to be your most productive. So I'm realistic. That's not always the case. Even here at Kolbe, we do this stuff all day long. However, 100% of the time, I can tell you I am unable to be a 5392. Sometimes there's systems I have to build that are going to help some of my salespeople be more productive. Sometimes I need to gather lots of data. I need to do lots of research. That's just part of what I have to do. So if that's the case, what are some tips that you can do to minimize the stress? First thing you can do is delegate or barter. So, right, we definitely we look at lots of data, lots of metrics, lots of information in my department. So what I did is I purposely brought on our sales coordinator with an accounting background. So she runs all that data for me. She creates these amazing dashboards, and that gives me just the highlights of the information that I need to know. So I've delegated, doing my research to her, and she now delivers in a way that makes sense for me. Some of you, right, you're not that lucky, you don't have somebody you can delegate it to. See if you can barter with a friend or a family member. If someone is really, really, detail-oriented, they get in there and they dot all the I's and cross all the T's, and you're a, big picture, high-level kind of person, see if you can trade and be like, hey, mom, or hey, brother, whoever it is, come look at this contract for me. Can you make sure I'm not missing anything, because my eyes are crossing reading through all this fine print. And then what you can do for them is when there's something where they don't have to dig into the details, it's a little more bigger picture, you can jump in and help them. Other tips that you can use technology. Right? There are all kinds of productivity apps and lots of things that can make your life a little easier. Again, as an example, I showed you guys my Outlook calendar. Outlook essentially is my crutch, and it's how I use technology. It tells me every 30 minutes or every hour where I need to go, what I need to do. We insert any information with a meeting I'm going to have about that person, put their Kolbe results in there, right? All of those things are inside of my calendar. I use technology to help reduce some of that stress. So I don't have to try to remember, where am I going to be next Thursday at 4 o'clock? Right? I have a system for that. Other thing you do it in a different way. The key when you need to get things done is focus on the end result, not necessarily on how you get to that end result. And do it in a way that's natural, that makes sense for you. I think if it's something where, you know what, it just is what it is, this is something that you have to do. Like, as an example, if I'm looking at a contract that we're getting ready to send out to a potential client, right? I can't say, oh, well, I'm not an aid in fact finder, so if the number's not right, it's okay. Right? That doesn't work. I need to be able to look at that and make sure that everything is precise. And I do that in short bursts. I do it for 10, 15 minutes here. I go work on something else. And if I have to come back to it, okay. An hour or two later, I come back to it. Doing those things that are against your grain in short bursts will reduce your stress. It'll make you more productive. And the last thing is, don't do it. You'd be surprised if you take a look at the things you do on a daily or weekly basis, how many of you do just because it's the way it's always been done or the way you've always done it, but they don't actually help. So if that's the case, knock it off. Stop doing it. Just take some unnecessary stress out of your life if it's something that doesn't have to be done. Right, but there's ways you can do that. You need to start to take a look at, again, what do I do on a daily, weekly, monthly basis, and how can I minimize my stress when I'm doing those things? First thing you should do, ask yourself, does it have to get done? Okay? If not, get rid of it. Delete it. Stop doing it. Make your life much, much easier. If it does have to get done, ask yourself, does it have to get done by me? So I'll give you guys another example here. So I have 2 dogs, and our 2 dogs love to run around in our backyard. However, our dogs also leave lots and lots of presents in our backyard for me. So, right, if I say I'm not going to do it, well, eventually the presents are going to overload my house, and it's not going to be a very fun backyard to go into. So it has to get done, but am I the one that has to do it? No. We actually found this amazing service that comes in once a week and takes care of it. So I delegated it to someone else. You guys can do the same thing. Look at whatever it is you're doing that causes you stress. Say, doesn't have to get done. Not, get rid of it. If so, see if there's someone else I can delegate it to, trade with, those kind of things. So earlier, right, when I was talking about the three critical action, the 3 steps to activating your A, so the last one is taking action. Now this one on the surface seems like it's the easiest, but sometimes I totally understand it's actually the hardest. Right? However, what I can tell you is that the best way to get anything done is to begin. Not quite sure who this author is. I've heard a different flavor of it. It's Martin Luther King Jr. quote who says, you don't have to see the whole staircase, you just have to take the first step. That's the key. If you joined this call because you're getting ready to start a business, or if you're contemplating starting a business, or if you want to communicate better with your spouse or your kids, or whatever the reason is that you wanted to learn more information about your Kolbe result, take action. Some of the things that we talked about today, right, put that into play. If you have, let's say a long blue line, right? If that's the case, then here's what I'm going to tell you. Don't worry about how others do it and how they're able to adapt and cut things down. Do things your way. Create that to-do list, create that checklist, and make sure that every single piece gets checked off of that checklist. If you're on the opposite, if you're someone like me who has a short green line or a short blue line, and you naturally adapt and change things, if you're in a world like I grew up in, or like most of us went through in school, where there's a system you have to follow, well, see how you can adapt it. Take some steps right now to change the way that you're doing things, to not follow those systems and processes that are already in place. Okay. First step sounds easy when I say take action, but I absolutely understand how difficult it can be. All I'm going to tell you is please just take that first step, and you'll continue down that path of using your Kolbe results, using your natural strength. So here are your next steps. Here, I'm going to give you some action steps you can take right now. The first one, take action. Do something. Right? It doesn't matter what it is, do something that allows you to use what we've talked about for the last hour or so. The next step is go to kolbe.com/AYA Live. Earlier when I told you that for those of you that hung on until the end, we're going to give you special access, this is the website that you can go to for special access. There's additional tips, there's some tricks, there's some things that you can use to even further activate your A and really boost your productivity. Right? If you were able to, get twice as much done in the same amount of time, if you wanted to spend more time with friends or make more money or whatever, go to kolbe.com/AYAlive. The tools to help you get there are absolutely on that page, so make sure you check that out. And then the last step I'm gonna give you is use your strengths. Again, whether you have a long red line, a short green line, a long green line, a long yellow line, it doesn't matter. Your strengths are perfect for you. Use those, right? Put them to your advantage and stop working against your brain like I did for all those years, because it really did stress me out. And until I learned how to leverage it, or once I learned how to leverage it, then I really unlocked my potential. So we only have a couple of minutes left. I'm going to take another quick break. I'm going to pause. I'm going to open it up for your questions. All right, so first question we have is, my result doesn't have 4 numbers. I have a little star or an asterisk underneath one of the colorful bars. What that means is that when you took the Kolbe A, you were in what we call transition. Think of transition as lots of stress. So when you took it, you were under lots of stress. Now, this happens for a number of reasons. At Kolbe, we intentionally don't identify what causes it. All we know is that you were under that stress. At any given time, 10% of the population is in transition. And it has happened to every single one of us at some point in our life. So sometimes it happens literally when you're at a transition point. So when you're graduating from college, trying to figure out what you want to be when you grow up. When you are, just getting married, and you're trying to figure out how to work or live together as a couple. You just have a newborn at home, or you're taking care of a sick loved one that's transitioning towards the end. Those are all things that can cause stress in your personal life. In your professional life, maybe you're contemplating starting a new business. Maybe you just started a new business. Maybe you work for a boss that, you don't get along with or it doesn't work for you. Again, those are all reasons that can cause transition or cause stress. Again, it happens to all of us, so here's what I'll tell you. At the end of your results, there are a number of questions that it's going to have you ask yourself. So go through, read those questions, answer those questions. Then once you feel as though you've worked through whatever that stress is that's going on in your life, give us a call back at Kolbe. We'll set you up with the free retake so you can get a result with your 4 numbers. Then you can start to apply some of the strengths and some of the things that we talked about today. Great question. All right, so there's a couple of more questions coming through on chat, but they're specific to individuals, so Karen's going to answer those in the chat box. She's trying to get through them one at a time, so just give her a minute. She'll definitely get there for you. Again, thank you guys so much for joining us. We're getting close to 2 o'clock here Mountain Time. I just want to remind you again what your next steps are. First thing is take action, right? Do something with the information that you learned today. Even if it's take one piece of information, one piece of data that I talked about today, take action on it, use it in your life. Next thing, go to kolbe.com/AYAlive. Lots of resources for you, lots of different things we can do to help you do this last thing, which is number 3, use your natural strengths. So I just want to say thank you, everybody, for joining us. Hopefully you've got a lot out of it. Hopefully you have a better understanding of your own Kolbe results and how to use this information to improve your life in a way that's important to you. If you have any additional questions, any follow-up items, something like that, here's my contact info. Please feel free to reach out. For those of you that mentioned you wanted to do a private one-on-one kind of session, reach out to me here. We'll definitely help you get that set up. Again, thank you so much for spending some time with us. If you want to connect, right, we're on all of the typical social platforms. Definitely connect with us. Our social media guy, Toby, is fantastic. He's really active on there. He answers questions as quickly as he can, or he'll pass them to one of us if it's a really in-depth question. Connect with us, right? Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, or if you want to come here in person, we'd love to see you in person at the end of October. If you've never been to Arizona at the end of October, here's what I can tell you. It'll be probably high 70s, low 80s without a cloud in the sky. You can definitely still go swimming, and you can wear flip-flops. So if you're from one of the colder parts of the country, or from Canada, right, probably sounds fantastic. We'd love to see you here. We'd love to meet you, answer any questions you have. But again, thank you all so much for spending some time with us. I'm going to hang out for a minute, answer any questions that keep coming through, but thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it.